This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
We're going to get into the good stuff in a minute, but I remind you first, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Also, we tell you about our friends at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying baseball, even football tickets. Season rapidly approaching, just a couple weeks away. Check out Game Time. Download that app. Create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. We're going to start with Drake Maye, because of course we do. Let's first start with the last time we had a conversation, you and I. It was before the Philadelphia Eagles preseason game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that game has been talked about an awful lot since then with Drake Maye. Just 30,000 feet, Greg. What have you seen from Maye the last couple of weeks? I know last week you went a little bit harsh on him, said he was far behind. Have you changed that stance? How do you feel now after the last several days going back to the preseason game?
Yeah, well, Nick, all I could tell you is, leaving the press box on Thursday night, and you could probably even hear this in the post-game show that I did on 98.5. Like, I left in a good mood from the press box on Thursday. Certainly better than where I was at the previous week. Certainly a lot better than I was after the Eagles joint practice, which that was not fun and not fun to watch. I was breathing a big sigh of relief because I thought that Drake Maye, and look, he has shown flashes in camp. It's not like he's out there drilling balls into the ground and throwing picks all the time and all this stuff. He's shown flashes in camp, but I would say they've been few and far between, especially about the week leading up to the Eagles joint practice. He sort of started out pretty well in camp, and then for about a week there, he kind of plateaued, and I was frustrated by that. And, it sort of culminated in the Eagles joint practice, and it wasn't all on him because it was the entire offense. The entire offense couldn't do anything once they started red zone in that practice. It was terrible. And, I asked people internally, like, did I react too harshly to that? Was I too harsh on the offense? And they're like, well, it certainly wasn't good. So they shared basically the same opinion. I mean, was I reactionary to that? Yeah. And did I probably overreact to it? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to take back my general overarching opinions about the offense and Maye's progression and a lot of that. I do think, some of it was that. The other thing that's really bothered me, and this is probably where I might have overreacted a little bit, was Maye's lack of usage against the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. And, anytime I say something or make an evaluation, like I always go back and, whether it's I revisit things or I talk to people in the building and be like, was this fair? Was this not fair? And, I can tell you, number one, first of all, there's a lot of people in the building who weren't happy with the plan with Drake Maye in that first game. And I made the slight mistake of reading too much into that 6 snaps against the Panthers, 3s, what they asked him to do, which was basically nothing. Like, I took that as a big sign of they don't think he can do anything. And That was not correct. That was not technically correct. Now, I will say I have an excuse, or at least this is what I think the excuse was, is that, I come from, I covered Bill Belichick for, 14 years, and I saw a lot of training camp practices, a lot of preseasons, and pretty much like it wasn't the secret sauce of Bill Belichick in terms of developing players, picking a roster and all that stuff. It wasn't all that complicated. Pretty much what you saw on the practice field and in the games is pretty much the coaches telling you like what they thought of the players in terms of like, for example, Jimmy Garoppolo went out there his rookie year and played like at least like 25 snaps in every game and, played well at times. And, they just had him in shotgun, sort of like they did with Drake, but, they kept things in his bucket, stuff that they knew that he could do.
Yeah.
But that's where I came from. And like to see Drake Maye only play 6 snaps and not being asked to do really much of anything, I reacted badly to that. And that was probably my mistake. Now, fast forward to Drake Maye. I think Thursday night, I'm sure other reporters will differ. But I thought Drake Maye in his 24, 25 snaps, whatever he had against the Eagles, I thought he showed more in that game than he had pretty much combined in camp to that point. Again, not saying that he didn't do anything in the games, but just in terms of his comfort, some of the way he read the defenses, delivered the ball on time. Like there wasn't the lack of decisiveness, and there wasn't the second guessing that we've seen in practice. And I know, some people excuse the quote unquote sacks in camp as just his protection. It wasn't just it's never just the protection. Part of it was Drake, like not pulling the trigger on stuff. And there were plays in this game where we saw him not pull the trigger and be a little indecisive. But I will say, I think this game was great for Drake. It at least if he was questioning himself, which I'm guessing that he probably was a little bit, I think that reinforced to him, like, I can play. I can play on this level. Now, look, his second team and all that stuff and simple offense and all that stuff. But I think it gave him a needed boost of confidence. And he carried that into the next 2 days of practice. The first day was in just shells, sort of, get back on the field, make some corrections type of thing. But the practice after that, he was really good. He was really decisive. He looked more like he knew what he was doing. And so to me, the Drake that we saw leaving the practice field against the Eagles and the one that we saw leaving the practice field on Monday before their day off, to me, were night and day. He looks like he's taking a needed step forward, especially with his confidence.
Being at some of the practices, I haven't been as many as you have been. I've been to about 6. I think I went to yesterday's. I think was my 6th practice, all padded, including the joint practice. I walked away from those practices feeling like the majority of the issues had to do with the offensive line and the supporting cast that he was working with. Yes, some of the stuff was on Drake Maye, the indecisiveness that you've brought up, all of that stuff. We saw it. We saw some of that, no doubt. Some of the exchanges between the center and he, even though I think most of that was Antonio Mafi. Thank God they finally got away from that experiment. But I thought a lot of it did have to do with the offensive line. And I think it correlates when, he goes out there with the starters, or at least most of the starters, against the Eagles on Thursday night. He plays better. Now, I would also say, I know people are pushing back and saying, oh, it was against the second Eagles defense. Well, Jacoby Brissett was also playing against that defense, and we saw what happened with Brissett. So when we're comparing apples to apples, Brissett to Drake Maye, Maye played better against the same guys. And I kind of feel the same way about the offensive line, which we'll get into regarding, they were playing against, Philly's second, third. There are levels to this, and we understand that. But there are comparisons that make sense. As far as his quarterback competition, Greg, after Thursday night, I think you and I, before you went on Felger and Maz last Tuesday, I think it was, and said that Maye was way behind. That's where you and I would have disagreed. I couldn't tell you how far behind Maye was because of everything that was happening around him. But we agreed on the Carolina game plan not making much sense. We agreed on the whole joint practice thing, him not getting any reps with the ones. So he goes out there on Thursday night against the Eagles. He plays the way he did. Now, to me, I don't know how you felt. I haven't talked to you yet. To me, I said to myself, has he earned the opportunity to start the regular season? No. But what he has earned is a chance to at least split the reps with the ones for the next few practices to really put the heat on Brissett and to have that comparable, mono versus mono, quarterback battle. We haven't really seen that. There was a mix and match of offensive linemen in front of him after the game in practice. That could be due to some injuries, as we know, some guys missing from the offensive line. But when I was out there yesterday, it was pretty much Drake again with the twos. Do you disagree with how the Patriots have run practice with their quarterbacks since that Eagles game?
So 10,000 feet, yes. The other side of the coin is I don't know what they're being asked to do. And like one thing I want to point out, because I think a lot of fans and a lot of listeners, have heard me talk about Drake in a certain way. And then they go out and they see in the preseason game him, play at least decently well, which would be in contrast to what I said. You have to realize that what they did in that game, preseason games in general, are completely different than, let alone the NFL regular season, but just like practices, whether it's internal, against their own team or against the Eagles, the Patriots are running their offense that they're going to run during the regular season in that practice. And that means, at least for now, with Alex Van Pelt, a lot under center, running game, all that stuff. On the other side of the coin is either the Patriots defense, whether it's ones or twos, and the defense does a good job of mixing guys up. They don't really put out a ones and a twos. Occasionally they do, but they really they'll have the starting defensive backs out there and backup defensive linemen. It's just the way they do things. But in the Eagles joint practice, the Eagles with Vic Fangio are running his stuff, which is complicated and different coverages and changing looks. You don't get that stuff in the preseason. And plus the Patriots were in shotgun 95% of the time against the Eagles. So to me, it's not comparable. It's both things can be true. Drake Maye, and especially Drake Maye with the under center stuff and being used to all this stuff, he can be struggling or indecisive in practice, and he can look better in a preseason game. Both can be true, and which I think they are. As far as the competition, I agree with you. I was questioning it before, and it was part of the reason why, I used it as my ammunition to be like, Drake's not where he needs to be, because if he was, why wouldn't they be giving him at least some snaps with the ones if Mayo's calling it a quote unquote competition? A competition means you guys are getting equal shots to win the job. To this point, that hasn't happened. It still hasn't happened. Even after the game the other night. Yeah, Drake got a couple snaps with Andrews in the jog through practice after the game. But like you said, there were injuries. Nick Leverett wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to go into it. But the bottom line is Drake Maye has not been given close to equal reps with Jacoby Brissett. I think that's wrong. I do think that he needs to be getting those reps. I think it would be useful for him, whether it's now or down the road. But to me, Gerard Mayo says a competition. Drake Maye could still start opening day. He doesn't know who the opening day starter is. If you watch practice, that's just not true. Right now, Jacoby Brissett is the starter. They had a period you were at the last practice. They had a period against Cards, which is literally a staffer holding up a card with an opponent play. It's used for the scout team. They're giving a look to probably the Bengals. They ran a 10-minute session, probably ran, 20 plays. If they ran 20 plays, Jacoby Brissett got 18 with the starters. Drake Maye got 2 with the backups. To me, that's not a competition. That means they're going forward with Jacoby Brissett as the opening day starter. Again, that's my interpretation. I just don't know how this coaching staff does things because it's new to me.
Hey everybody, it's Greg Bedard, and I wanted to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. I love this. I love the games that they have on there. Some of the stats that you can pick out, like, do you think Tyreek Hill will get more than 90.5 yards in week 1? Aaron Jones runs for more than 66.5 yards. Cook up your hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks.
With that in mind, I have a couple questions. The first question is, you've talked about, and I've discussed on 98.5 when I've been doing shows there, what we saw on Thursday night against Philly. A lot of shotgun, a lot of stuff that Drake Maye ran at UNC. It came out that Alex Van Pelt sat down with Drake before the game, asked him about some of the concepts that he liked to run. What do you think was behind that decision to go more shotgun heavy, to do things that May was a little bit more comfortable in doing from his time at UNC? Was it because they wanted to make the young man feel comfortable and get his confidence up? Or are they trying to mix and match here and maybe they're thinking about bringing some of those elements to this AVP offense?
It's a good question. I think whenever Drake Maye is the starting quarterback of this team, they're going to have to you're going to have to include some of that stuff. And, talking with NFL offensive coordinators and league executives, sort of like what you do with a young player like this is you figure out, all right, what's in his bucket? What you go back to the college tape, you talk to him. What are the concepts he likes? How does he like to move? What kind of routes does he like all that stuff. And so then you do that stuff in practice and you're like, all right, the kid's got these. These are in his bucket. They're in his bag. And then a good coach slowly expands the bag, especially in preseason opportunities, which, again, I'm never going to let go of this. The Carolina Panthers game was a complete botched miss opportunity that I'm sure if you asked people in the front office and the coaching staff right now, in hindsight, they'd be like, man, we really overthought that. That was dumb. Yeah. I can almost tell you that they feel that way. But be that as it may, this is where they are. I think that this is a very long discussion, and I'm sure it's the discussion that Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo and the AVP and all these guys, they're going to have. But I think it starts with Mayo. And, they are going to have to, at some point here, if it hasn't happened already, it will, maybe after the preseason game. Gerard Mayo has to figure out how this team is going to win football games this year. What does it look like?
Yeah.
How are they going to have to play in all facets of the game? How are they going to cover in the secondary? Are they going to be almost exclusively man? Are they going to play more zone? Are they going to do more trap? Are they going to do, how are they going to win games? And that includes like the defensive interior without Christian Barmore. Can they stop the run? How are they going to do that? And it really, how it pertains to May and the offense is they have to figure out how the team currently constituted with what's going on with the offensive line. They have Ramondre Stevenson, like all this stuff. How are they going to move the ball? How are they going to control the ball? How are they not going to turn the ball over? And probably Gerard's going to say, and he has said this before, it might change, but he has said, we are going to run the football. We are going to win with defense. And then once you have that settled, then you fit the pieces around, including the quarterback, on whether they can do that. So when it comes time for the team to run the ball and play ball control and stuff like that, what's the best way for the team to do that? Is it getting in the shotgun and doing a bunch of gun runs and RPOs and stuff like that, which would be easier for May to do? Probably not. It's probably AVP wants to get under center, outside zone, stretch, play action, all that stuff. And when you judge it on that scale, probably Jacoby Brissett's up here and Drake Maye's down here. But there's no... He can close the gap. I think he has closed the gap, but that's really where you start when it comes time to when can Drake play and what can he do. You have to look at what are the ramifications of that decision and how the team's going to play.
Let's say Greg Bedard fills the role of Elliott Wolf and he's sitting in his office and you're looking at the elements of we've got to bring some quarterbacks into town, we've got to hire an offensive coordinator. What's your philosophy, Greg? Do you like the idea of Alex Van Pelt saying we're running the West Coast, we're going under center, we're going with play action, bootleg, and we're gonna fit Drake Maye into that? Or do you like the idea of let's just get the young man in here, see what he's comfortable in running, run that stuff because he's our future, and that's the way we're going to go? Philosophically, where do you land on that?
So let's also point out that, just by the timeline, you have to hire the OC before you pick the quarterback. Yes. So, I would say, and I know there's a sort of a big discussion about this, but I don't think it's all that complicated. I think you have to pick an offensive coordinator. And I guarantee you, I think we're supposed to talk to his offensive assistant coaches on Thursday. I guarantee you Alex Van Pelt has said, and I've heard Mike McCarthy with this, because Mike Van Pelt comes from the McCarthy tree, basically, and I covered Mike McCarthy. And, we used to get in a lot of these discussions with McCarthy, especially about his lack of running the ball. And he'd be like, I would love to run the ball 50 times every game and blah, 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 which was a bunch of crap. But, the uncomplicated answer is every offensive coordinator is going to have a foundation to what he believes in, how he does things, but they have to have the ability to do both. And really every offense does, because at some point in time, you're going to be running 2-minute, you're going to be shotgun spread, you're going to be doing that. I think that Alex Van Pelt would say, we have the ability to tailor this offense to any quarterback, depending on what their strengths are and how we want to play and all that stuff. And so, and I think he would also say that a lot of different type quarterbacks have been successful in this scheme. And I think that Drake certainly falls into that physical profile, athletic ability. I'm thinking just like Rodgers, Favre, those type of guys that Drake, it worked for those guys. It can work for Drake Maye as well.
I agree. I mean, you figure him out under center, which we'll get into in a minute. But if you looked at the quarterbacks and which quarterbacks could fit AVP's system or AVP could make it work, Maye does a lot of the things that AVP wants his quarterback to do. As you said, the athleticism with the bootleg. He likes to take deep shots. Maye has the arm strength. They like to attack the seam. They like to throw to tight ends, all that kind of stuff. And he can kind of fit that. They attack the middle of the field a lot. And Drake was good throwing to the middle of the field. So there are attributes of Maye that fit with AVP. And let's not forget, AVP was asked a similar question that I just asked Greg going back months ago. And he said, I feel like, you always kind of tailor the offense with who you have, and that's what you do. But I also think these guys can, fit multiple ways. So I think he sees it more fluid as others would that have been commenting about that. I got another question, then we'll move on to the offensive line. So a couple things. We talk about Drake and his development. I think a couple things stand out where he hasn't looked as good, right? Under center is one. There's still some awkwardness there. And the 2-minute drill, the no huddle 2-minute drill stuff, stuff that we see at practice where it's, hey, you got a minute left on the clock. You've got to drive the team down. We saw this yesterday at the practice. Brissett got him in field goal range. Maye's drive went pretty much nowhere. He made one good throw to Booty, but outside of that, it really didn't do anything else. We've seen that now consistently, where in that situation, Maye is still a little bit a fish out of water. What I've got to ask you, Greg, is if you're the offensive staff, you're Mayo, you're looking at this. Okay, so he's not doing great with 2-minute. He's not super comfortable just yet, maybe under center. Is that too much minutia? Are there too many boxes to check to get him out there? Is there a certain point when you say to yourself, we can live with this guy? He might not be great under center yet, but he's doing everything else okay. And he's better than Brissett, so let's play him. Where do you draw the line? How much has to be done and fundamentally sound for you to put him on the football field when it counts?
Yeah, I think it's related to the answer I gave before. I think related to that is they have to, how are they going to move the ball and what does the running game look like? Because I think it's a vast difference and I don't think it's very successful. Not to say you can't. And again, if like say they do a lot of gun run and RPO stuff with Drake Maye. They incorporate like a lot of what he did at North Carolina, which I do think the scheme can adapt to. One of the benefits is Drake Maye's part of the running game, and they have to account for him. So that opens some things up that Jacoby Brissett or say like a Mac Jones wouldn't. Then again, if he's part of the running game, how much you're exposing him to hits and things like that. So I think the fundamental question, the first question you have to answer is, how are we going to run the ball? What's the best way? Can we do it out of the shotgun? Can we do it with RPOs? And then that gets into, okay, well, that's in Drake's bag. So he has more of a chance to start. I mean, I just think there are a lot of foundational questions that lead to the answers that we're all seeking. Hey, everybody, there was a little bit of a chill in the air here in New England today. And you know what that says to me? It says football. And better yet, it means going to football games, college, pro, high school. It's that time of year. You got to be there in person, especially for college and pro games. And if you want to get there and make great memories that last a lifetime, I mean, I can think of so many Dolphins games I've been to, the old Patriots Stadium, those red jerseys. You got to go over to Game Time to make sure that you get in on these memories. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Hey, you want to go to the Patriots home opener? Seattle Seahawks? Go on the Game Time app, go through it. They have deals. They have discounts all the time, and the price will drop the day of the game. Say you want to hang out in the parking lot, wait till it gets cheaper. You can hit that. You know what I love about Game Time app? Probably my favorite thing is the view from your seat. I have to have that. I have to know where I'm sitting, what I can see, what I can't see, and I love that. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, pro football, college football, basketball, anytime, by downloading the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
With that said, let's get to the offensive line. Simple question for you. Maybe it's not a simple question for you. August 20th, 2024. We are recording this at 6:26 p.m. Eastern time. Where's Greg Bedard with this offensive line?
I would say that I am. I'm concerned. The last time I saw them against starters against the Eagles, they got their lunch handed to them. I don't disagree with what Elliot Wolf told us the other day about he thinks they have the pieces to be competitive. I don't disagree with that. I also don't disagree with him saying that, Vedarian Lowe, has some potential and he just needs to learn, a good punch, which he's developing. And I do think that Vedarian Lowe is on the upside. I did not think that he played poorly the other night. It wasn't great, but I don't think it was as bad as people like to make him out to be.
I just like to I threw him under the bus on Twitter on Thursday night. So I'm one of the people that were very upset and said, I'm done with him. Enough is enough. And not only Greg, but I've seen other people, Taylor Kyles, Evan Lazar. Greg has done more work about offensive line than anybody else. And those three guys, they're smarter than me when it comes to offensive line play. And all of them seem to agree that Lowe is showing at least a little bit of upside and a little bit of, hey, it might not end up being a disaster.
Yeah. I would agree with that, especially if you get the other pieces ironed out. Now, looking at the Patriots the way they are, do they have 5 adequate starters on the offensive line? No, I'd probably more put 3 or 4. It's like 3.5 over under. But there are a lot of moving parts. Let's go through it. Left tackle, Vedarian Lowe. Are there any other options? Caden Wallace, but that's probably a stretch for him as a rookie. Now, look, the whole Chukwuokorafor thing. Remember, Wolf basically said that they signed him to play left tackle. I think it was Mayo or Wolf said that if it was today was the day, Okorafor would be our left tackle.
Yep.
That happened for like 3 days, hasn't happened barely at all since. So what's the issue there? I believe that Okorafor has some discomfort playing on the left side. Maybe didn't like it, prefer the right side. Maybe they're giving. I think they're giving that a harder look to see, is that workable for them. So I still think that Okorafor has a chance to be their best left tackle. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I have reason to believe that they're not exactly thrilled with Okorafor on the coaching staff. So there's that. That's left tackle. Left guard. City So has been a little bit up and down. Not bad. I wouldn't say that he, I wouldn't say he's been really good. At times he's been good. But the other thing is Layden Robinson, the rookie, has been coming on like gangbusters in the games, in the practices. He is now definitely in the conversation for being one of the best 5. And so what do you do there? Now, he played a lot of right guard in college, almost exclusively right guard. So what do you do there? What do you do with Big Mike? Do you kick? We'll get to that in a second. David Andrews, solid at center. Back to left guard for a second. I think that as of the moment, City So and Layden Robinson are in a competition. I don't think it's anything that So's done wrong. I think it's more about how good Layden Robinson has been. So right guard, Mike Owenu has a chance to be an all-pro right guard, even though, I don't know if you heard this the other day, but Mike Lombardi on his podcast said that Owenu reported 80 pounds overweight. Like, I don't know that. I've heard that he had a little trouble with the scale, but he said the other day to us that he's 350 and that's where he wants to be at. I don't know whether he reported like that, but anyways. So Owenu has a chance to be an all-pro right guard.
Hold on. So if he's 350, if Lombardi is accurate, you're telling me that Michael Owenu showed up at 430 pounds?
Yeah, no, there's no way. I think that, and I said in OTAs, I said, I don't know, Michael Owenu kind of looks bigger to me.
Yeah, you said he looked a little big.
Yeah, and because number one, I expected to slim down because he talked about, he's going to train for offensive tackle.
Yep.
He didn't look like an offensive tackle when he came in. So I don't know. I would have said at most, if he's 350 now, he was probably 380 when he came in. Probably. That would be my guess.
420 or 430 is a bit much. I think everybody would have been like, holy shit.
That's like Trent Brown territory. Anyways, so what do? Robinson could play right guard. Owenu could be a very solid right tackle. He could be good right tackle. I don't think he's going to be all pro. Could be Pro Bowl. I don't know. Maybe. So, what does that look like? Okay, say you keep Owenu at right guard, at right tackle. They've had a core of 4 there. He had a horrible practice against the Eagles. Horrible. He did better in the game. How much can you count on him? Where's his mental toughness? Where's his physical toughness? These are all things the coaches are going to have to sort out. Now, I would say, as of right now, my opening day starting offensive line is low, even though I would prefer Okorafor. Low, City So, David Andrews, Layden Robinson, Mike Owenu. Let me also say, Caden Wallace is a potential to play right tackle. I think he could play right tackle today. So there are, and Wolf alluded to this the other day, saying like they have to figure out where the pieces fit. There are pieces. Is the top end that good? No. But I think they have options. And now I think it's going to be, Nick, I really think it's going to be mix and match. This is part of the Drake Maye equation. If they're trying people out the first 4 weeks of the season, borrowing from Bill Belichick, first 4 games are an extension of the preseason. Do you want Drake Maye out there for that?
No.
Probably not. Wait until it's settled. Get it settled. Figure it out. Take however long you need to, but get it figured out.
Trying to strip this down to the most basic fundamental idea here, because I've talked a lot about the O-line. You've talked a lot about the O-line. I think last week, the joint practice against the Eagles, the guy was there. It was atrocious. It was horrific. It was awful. There's no other way to put it. Everybody stunk out loud. It was bad. Bad. But I always try to take myself out of the moment and look at the big picture. I always try to look at the 30,000-foot view. It's why I love asking the question sometimes to you about the 30,000-foot view. I think it's important because when we get wrapped up in the day-to-day, and yes, we have a show to do today. I agree with that. But I think you could tell people what's going on today without making some grand conclusion about what's going to happen tomorrow or a year from now. So I always try to take myself out of it. And there's no denying that the Carolina game wasn't great for some guys. So took a step back. And you saw
Wenu wasn't great either.
Yeah. And then, the joint practice was atrocious. It was a bad week. It was a bad 5 or 6 days. I thought they bounced back relatively well against Philly. And I know it's against their backups, but I would say before the Carolina game, when we had the conversations about the offensive line, we'd say they're okay. It's not a disaster. And they're going against the ones, right? They're going against the Patriots ones. And the Patriots have been throwing some blitz looks at them during practice. So I do count those practice reps against the starting defense of the Patriots, especially when Matthew Judon was out there. So they have been repping against ones. Just hasn't been the live bullets. To strip down the easiest, you hit the word, Greg, options. And I think that's the difference from right now to what we were talking about last year. They have options. So when people say this offensive line's a disaster, they screwed up again, that might be true. By week 5, we might be looking at this and going, oh my God, it's a disaster. They screwed up again. But I'm actually going to give them some time to let this unfold because of what Greg just mentioned. The options. Like, you have Robinson that you can put at right guard and slide Onwenu to right tackle, and now you feel pretty damn good from left guard to right tackle, as long as City So can hold his ass. So you can put Wallace at right tackle and keep Onwenu at right guard. Greg went over some of the moves. So the way I look at this is you've got Okorafor, Onwenu, Andrews, Robinson, So, Wallace, Vidarian Lowe. 7 offensive linemen. If 4 of those 7 guys can work out, you'll be okay.
Yep.
And we don't know what the mix and match is going to be. But I think that's what Patriots fans have to focus on. Can 4 of those 7 guys work out? And I think Greg just told you, Wallace, to be optimistic here for a minute, which I know is people don't want that in Boston, but Wallace has shown flashes. Robinson's done pretty damn good throughout camp. So if you look at what they did at the draft, right now, it doesn't look like it's a huge swing and a miss. Could change. I'm telling you right now how those guys have looked. So, in totality, has looked pretty good. Onwenu in totality has been good. So has Andrews. So when you take it from beginning of camp to right now, I think they have a pretty good chance of 4 of those 7 guys working out. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on that. All right, before we get to 3 things that we didn't like, because I got to get to dinner here in a few minutes, let me first tell you that you want to take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets. Take that guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You also want to check out Greg and Giardi over there at BSJ, $50 for the year. You know the spiel, they do great work. And finally, download the Prize Picks app today. Use that code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's CLNS on Prize Picks. Deposit match up to $100. All right, Greg. Quick, because I got some little things that we got to tie up here at the end. What happened today? Nothing huge, but a few little things. 3 things that you liked about the Philly preseason game.
Well, I mean, I'll just start with Drake Maye. I mean, it was like, whew, okay, and calm down, Bedard, a little bit. I felt better. I'm still, he's still got a long ways to go. I still think his motion is way too long. I think that's got to get figured out. If he's going to become an elite quarterback, you can get away with it for a while, but at some point that's going to need to be fixed. And, there's some other things, but I really liked his demeanor in the game. Like he's very flatlined, like, not much riles him. Like, I think that's a really good place to start. Number 2, I think I would say the pass rush which was good. I mean, some of the guys like Keon White and Josh Uche beating up backups, but still, it was good. I had them like 43% pressure rate in the game. And what's even better is that they only blitzed less than a quarter of the time. Everybody knows how I felt about the blitz in the first game where they did it like half the time. I'm like, what are we doing here? What's the point of this?
Yep.
They were able to get pressure, without doing that. And so, I would say the other thing that I liked in this game, was the offensive line overall. Again, it wasn't the Eagles ones. It's not, Jalen Carter and Davis in there and all those guys, but it was definitely, not only for Drake Maye gaining confidence in this game, I think the offensive line gained confidence. I think Layden Robinson, I think the two rookies, I had them as my highest rated offensive linemen in the game. So that's really good and talks about the coaching that they're getting and how they're applying things to the field. So those are sort of the three things I feel best about.
3 things you didn't like.
I would say related to that, I guess, first of all, Marcellus Dial, the rookie cornerback, had a night to forget. Oops. I mean, they were throwing all over the joint on him. Some of it wasn't his fault. Good coverage, good throws, good catches. Some of it was him stopping his feet and reaching and grabbing and things like that. So that's number one. Number 2 would be, some of the work by the rookie wide receivers, especially Javon Baker in this game. There were a handful of times watching Javon where I was like, I don't know what the hell he's doing, and I don't know if he knows what he's doing on this play, and which caused some issues for Drake Maye. I think it has also caused him to drop on the depth chart because he is now basically running with the threes. They have been like, all right, we gave you too much too soon, let alone the catching thing. We need to dial it back. And
let alone that he has problems catching the football consistently, which is pretty important for a wide receiver.
Yeah. And there were some, with Polk, there were a couple times where I'm just like, I don't know if he's supposed to be doing that. And, but, it seems like they like what he's doing because it seems like he's up with the ones or at least in the mix to be with the ones. So that's really good. But, so that was 2. 3, I guess, would be the run blocking. That's probably where some of my biggest concerns on this team are.
Yep.
They couldn't run the ball. I mean, most of their runs came like after contact. Thank God Ramondre Stevenson could get I think he had like 38 yards after contact or something like that. But like they got to figure out how they're going to run the ball. It might not be the outside zone and all this stuff. It might be gap. It might be inside because they're having a lot of issues running the ball. And we all know, we saw this with Matt Patricia. If they can't run the ball, there's going to be a lot of long yardage situations on second down, on third down. They got to figure out how they're going to get 4, 5, 6 yards in the running game to really give this offense a chance.
Yeah, it's mostly been an untold story, but their offense running the football, Ramondre's popped a couple at practice here and there, but they have not consistently been able to get some runs going. So they got to figure it out. All right, let's tie up some loose ends here. Just some moves today. The Patriots, they put Jaquay Jackson on the IR. We saw him leave on Thursday night against Philly, got carted off, so he's done. They did sign Matt Landers, wide receiver, big guy, 6'4", like 210 pounds, something like that, workout warrior. So he is now in town. Also, I wanted to bring this up. Kobe Jones and Christian McCarroll, 2 linebackers, Greg. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because you look at edge now. Without Judon, he's out of town. Uche and Zimenez both have missed the last couple of practices. I don't know if this is to get through Sunday night, and they feel pretty good about Uche and Zimenez being healthy by the time you get to Labor Day weekend, or if this is an indication as to, wow, we're really thin, and we might have just, we don't know about Uche and Zimenez. So something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, I mean, it could just them like getting their emergency lists in order. Yeah. But I think you're right. I mean, especially with this last preseason game and the injury situation, and Mayo said everybody who's healthy is going to play. Like, they got to figure out how to finish the game. That's often what happens in this game. So, and plus they have a long week. They don't play till Sunday night. I think it's the last game of the preseason schedule. And so they have time to bring guys in. I mean, I would say my inclination is they're just sort of going through positions in terms of tryouts. But you could be right. They could be trying to bring a couple of people in to finish these games.
All right, and the last thing I wanted to say was Chris Price reporting that the Patriots have been one of the teams that have inquired into Dennis Daly. And so that's a name that we might want to pay attention to, offensive lineman. I think he played every game in 2022 at left tackle for Tennessee, if not every game, almost every game of that season on the left side. He was signed by Arizona after the 22 season, mostly injured last year, was pretty much a lost season for him with Arizona. And now he's kind of stuck in a numbers game, but he is somebody that has experience at both tackle and guard and has started a number of games in the league. So if you're looking for offensive line depth, maybe they bring him in.
I had, when you said that name, I was like, I have no clue who that is or where this is going. But what you're going to see out of this this front office going forward here is anytime they see somebody who could be an upgrade over somebody on the roster, could be the last guy, could be the 8th offensive lineman, they're going to do it. So this could be a Calvin Anderson upgrade, who is now hurt and has not had a very good camp in preseason.
Greg's putting that kindly. He's been brutal. That's it. We're back later this week. Be well until then.